Good morning. I meant to bring my phone because I wanted to take a picture of this. It's just so good to have everybody here in the same room, and I've been excited since I heard about it. The kids being with us and the youth being with us. So it's just awesome to see you. As mentioned, I'm John, and I'm the associate pastor of discipleship, and I'm 4 weeks old. So it's just good to be here. You know, when I first heard about this service, I immediately started thinking about our kids, and I don't think I mentioned that in my first Sunday, but the kids have always had a place in my heart, and some of my friends say that I'm childish. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about just being childlike, but I came up with a term. I had like 3 weeks to think about this message and pray about this message, and I came up with a term. I think it's new. It's called kiditis. And I have kiditis. I love the adults, love you too, but the kids. And I tell you, I've been this way. I've always been this way, but having grandkids just blew it up. There's no turning back now. But kiditis. One thing that I've focused on over these last few weeks is what I've learned is that kids teach me more than I teach them. And so that's kind of where I landed this morning. So this morning I'm going to declare that school is in session. Y'all thought you had, how much time do they have before school starts? It's starting now. School's in session, show and tell. But here's the twist. Adults, we are the students today. Kids, you are the teachers today. How you like that? Sounds pretty good, doesn't it? What was that? I heard a comment. All comments are welcome today. I may use them. Kiditis. So with kiditis, I'm in good company. I'm in good company. Jesus was the first one that had kiditis. A little bit of context about Jesus' time to set this up. So back in his time, children were loved. They were loved as a blessing, but they had no status. They weren't elevated in the culture. So having kiditis then was real radical. It was a real radical view, as you will feel here in just a minute. But kids, they didn't have status, but even their ranking, if you want to look at it that way, was based on their family lineage. So it was a lot different. So enter Jesus. He had the first one. He was the first one that had kiditis. So Jesus stops everything. He's in a setting like this. He stops everything. Matthew 19:14. He says this: "Let the children come to me. Let the children come to me." That's what we did this morning. That's what we do every week here. Let the children come to me. He said not later, not when they're older, not when they mature, not when their parents win the lottery. Now. Jesus says, right now, let the children come to me. So he places children in the middle of his ministry, not on the fringes. That's where we're going this morning. So it's not a sentimental welcome. It's theological, because Jesus putting the kids right at the center, it gives us a visual of the nature of the kingdom of God. So it's theological. Jesus, this command is kind of a mirror for us. That when we look in this mirror, do our homes, do our churches, does our church, do our schedules, do they all mirror that command? Let the children come. So is this our main teaching this morning? No, but it's the foundation. It's the first step that we're going to take together this morning. So I want you to picture, there's that painting. I probably should have popped it, but actually it's better to see this in your mind's eye. So in your mind's eye, picture Jesus surrounded by the children. That painting. Picture that in your mind's eye. And then he drops this second truth bomb in Matthew 18:3. And he says, "Truly I tell you," if you do a word study, like a biblical word study, you'll learn that when he says, truly I tell you, it's kind of like underlining it. It's kind of like putting it, what do we say in social media? Why are you screaming? It's kind of in bold. It's kind of one of those, shake you a little bit, wake you up. Truly I tell you, unless you change, let that sit for a minute. Unless you change and become like little children, you will, what's the word? Never. That's a long time. You will never enter the kingdom of God. So now our adults, including me, we're like, that kingdom of heaven sounds pretty good to me. I'm all ears. So how do I become like a child? How do I become like a child? So that's what we're going to spend our time this morning, is letting the children teach us how we enter the kingdom of heaven. The way I did this, so that it wouldn't take 3 hours, it only going to take 1. I'm just kidding. Is I used my kids, and then I used our kids. So I just kept it, because I got stories of next door neighbors, the kid on the neighborhood behind us when we walk, ask me later. But I'm going to use my kids and then our kids that we see here in the room today. So I want to share that teaching with you. My kids, it's our two kids, and then our 2 grandkids. And that's on the job training. And then our kids, I asked Christy to collect some of their teachings for me. And I feel led to do this right now, just real quick. Christy and Karen and Dawson and Georgia, I don't think Georgia's here, but if you're on their teams or you're one of those names, will you please stand so we can thank them for what they do? Please. It's going to come into play live in a minute, because they teach them and then they teach us, So thank you for what you do. Thank you for answering your call into ministry. So I spent a lot of time with this, and Christy helped me out with this survey, and I rolled it all up, and it comes out to 1, 2, 3, 4 things. Trust, humility, number 2, wonder, and then purity of heart. Trust, humility, wonder, and purity of heart. Those are the categories for our lessons today, adults. So first up, trust. I think it's just like when I introduce the context of Jesus' time, I kind of want to introduce some context of each of these topics as it relates to us grown-ups, just so we can, see the pivot or experience the pivot. So adult trust, just for a second. I thought about that saying. We have a saying, I trust you as far as I can throw you. That's kind of a good summary of adult trust. I'm not crying. It's got a horse. There are some points in here that may hit it, but we'll see. I trust you as far as I can throw you. At my previous church, when we launched it, we had this kind of over-the-chart focus on health. And one of the books we studied, I love the title and I love the book, but one of the studies the leadership studied, it says traveling at the speed of trust. And that's true for our church today. It's true for all churches. We travel at the speed of trust. I would invite you to take that one home and unpack it a little bit in your own soul. So what do children teach us about trust? So I reflected on these characters that I mentioned earlier in our son. Our 32-year-old child, Sam, is who I picked for trust. Here's my reflections on Sam. He doesn't overcomplicate trust. He never has. He doesn't negotiate. He doesn't feel like he has to perform. And he simply thrives within those who love him. What a great body of trust. Now, Sam, when he was this tall, I don't know ages anymore, but I remember he was that tall, we would go on walks. We lived I think Matthew was a baby. We'd go on walks, and our neighborhood had one street, but there were some apartments next to us. So we'd go on these walks, and it was like an adventure walk. And I'm not kidding you. There was a hill at the end. It was about as tall as this right here. And we would get at the bottom. We'd be like, okay, we're going to do this. I mean, he's like, this tall. Everything but paint our faces, And man, when we get to the top of that hill, you did it! You did it! You did it! We celebrated it. And as I was reflecting on this, I thought, man, he carried that into his adult life. But he, in this case, he trusted the challenge. He trusted the challenge. He trusted any challenge within that framework of people that loved him. What about our Powell professors? So Christy asked our Powell professors, what does it mean to have faith or trust? And you said, teachers, you trust that God is the only God. Whew, there's a sermon. So pickleball's not your God. God is your only God. I was trying to think of other things. That's the safest one. Number 2, believing in things you can't see. This is a child talking. Believing in things you can't see. Number 3, trusting and believing in God. A child's trust is a living picture of faith. That's what they just gave us. Next up, humility. So the opposing view of humility, the grown-up view, might be arrogance, entitlement, narcissism. So that picture you painted in your mind's eye a minute ago, Jesus with the kids, it's so pretty. I want you to add something. Add the disciples around the kids, and then add adults around the disciples. Okay? I'm about to tarnish the picture. You know what the adults were? Why do I enjoy doing that so much? You know what they were about? Status. Hierarchy. That's what they were. What's a better word than chattering about? Matthew 18:4. Humble yourself before the Lord. Humble yourself like this child, and that is the greatest. Whoever humbles himself like this child is the greatest. So that was the context of that scripture in Jesus' teaching. So he's putting the child up as a living example of the greatness of the kingdom of heaven. It's profound. It's so profound. So selecting my humility teacher was very easy. Owen, our 2-year-old grandson. Here's my reflections on little Owen. He's free from pretending. This is why I love kids so much, man. He's free from pretending. He's not chasing status. He don't even know what it is. He's not curating an image. He is, but he doesn't know it. He's not trying to be impressive. His honesty is unguarded. That didn't get me. That's the one that got me yesterday. Whoever humbles himself like this child is the greatest. So what about our Powell teachers? What do they say about humility? The question that I tied to this topic is, what do you love most about Powell Church? Listen to the purity of these answers, or the humility. Having fun, don't lose that. Spending time with friends. Community is one of our discipleship tracks. The kids are teaching us this already. And I love this one. Teachers are nice versus the opposite. Here, but one answer was the majority of all the answers, and it was this. Everyone is accepted and loved. That's another one that everyone is accepted and loved. You know what I say to that? They're watching. They're learning. Today they're teaching. Everyone. Y'all hear that, adults? From our children? Everyone is accepted and loved. Wonder. Number 3. The words that I came, wonder, awe, that's also a word that's used in the scriptures, never easily understood. Curiosity, delight, and openness. And to help set the stage in our classroom there, our competing worldview, this is what I want to say. What grows in us when wonder fades? Yesterday we got to go to Mount Hermon United Methodist. The men's group here went over there and helped them with their back to school bash. And I walked in and Lee said, "Hey, you want to tell the story at 3 o'clock?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." Yeah, sure. I'd rather, work that little fishing thing. But, so I talked to the kids about this. What grows in us adults when wonder fades? And there were some teenagers there. And I was like, y'all, please hear me. Because that's about when it happens. The wonder starts to fade. And what grows, and this is sadly my reflection: cynicism, jadedness, and overfamiliarity. Ironically, I watched a podcast last week where the teacher was talking about overfamiliarity and how that can kill the church with regular attenders, because we come in every week and we sit in the same chair. I was at Lincoln Park, sadly, for it was a celebration of life last week. That was my first church. Brian's here visiting us today. And I remember when I was there, there was a footstool, and then there was some pillows. And when I had a wedding, I had to take pictures of all the pews so I could put everything back. There's familiarity. And I saw that footstool last week. But just think of how over-familiarity, I can't say that word very well, could affect your faith walk individually. So the classroom this morning, Matthew, my 30-year-old kid, he's always lived with an open eyes and an open heart. Becky and I used to comment when he was a little kid, he'd make comments about adults that he observed. And we're like, what the heck? You remember that? When he'd see something beautiful, he didn't analyze it, he received it. Big difference there. He'd gasp at lightning bugs. He'd marvel at rainbows. And even to this day, he finds joy in the small things. Back then, he had an older brother, so he never got anything new. But he received it like it was. He didn't care. He was just happy to have it. But I shared with y'all the first Sunday. I love the music. I shared with y'all the first Sunday that Matthew has always lapped up every drop life will give him. But today I just want to say, do you see the spiritual lesson in that? There's a great lesson for us adults, lapping up every drop life will give him. What about our Powell professors on wonder? The highlights in one of the questions was learning about Jesus, dancing, and singing. And I thought those two go together. When you learn about Jesus, you should dance and sing. That's what we try to do in here, worship. So the last song today, we're going to have a dance-off. I'll be the judge. No, I'm just kidding. Dancing and singing. On Wednesday, I was coming in here to walk through this thing. I like to do it here. And it's my first communion, so I had to do that today. But Wednesday, I was walking down the hall in the preschool. I'm already probably, the teachers are probably already complaining that I interrupt, and I'm that guy that, gets them juiced up, and then I leave, and then they have to deal with it. But I was walking down the hall, and I can't not. And there's, a little group, they were like right there. And I'm like, I'm trying to, do the code smiles and everything. And the teacher said, "Show him your new tennis shoes." And so this beautiful little girl's like, "Look at my new little," we're on Wonder, "Look at my new little tennis shoes." I'm like, "Those are great. Those are great." Yesterday I asked the kids at Mount Hermon, what makes you go, woo? It's not a wrestling reference. It's not. What makes you go, woo? Well, that little girl, she goes, "Show them what they do." Guess what they did? They lit up. I was like, woo! Just the wonder in that little moment, unplanned, unscripted, but beautiful. It's a divine trait. Wonder is a divine trait, and children remind us of that. Last, purity of heart. How are we doing? Good. To set up the classroom here with this tension, the opposite of purity of heart of a child is self-reliance. Self-reliance. But there's more to it. Self-reliance shaped with mixed motives. Things that kind of divide our heart. Our heart becomes more calculating. Our heart becomes self-protected. In a unique way, I think Will's been talking about that for 3 weeks, this stuff, and how it plays out in our worldly views. But my immediate family purity of heart is Landon, our 4-year-old, going on 40. And the reflections I captured is he has 0 unclouded motives. 0. His heart is uncluttered. He witnesses to me with purity and goodness. And his life posture is show and tell. So I want to talk to the adults a minute. And this is going to be streamed, so I hope my son and daughter-in-law don't see it. But when we FaceTime them, it's show and tell, And the parents think we want to talk to them. But they're wrong. I love them, but I don't want to talk to them on FaceTime. And so he'll do like 1 or 2 show and tell sessions, and then the third one, the grown-ups put the thing on them, and I can hear him in the background, Pop, Grammy, So adults, when they're, I can't wait for the day where they take the phone into their room with them, and we can do that. But purity of heart, his purity of heart is watch this. And I'll tell you, oftentimes with adults, when they're in a struggle, I'll just hear God whisper, watch this. Watch this. Watch what we're about to do in this person's life. So, he just desperately wants to share joy with us, and that's what our kids. What about our PAL heroes, purity of heart? This is amazing. This is amazing, the question they answered. Striving to act like Jesus. Okay, these are our children, grown-ups. Helping people in need and giving stuff away. Where are they learning that? They see it. They see it here. The amazing thing is, my first Sunday here, we were talking about discipleship, and I said, be with Jesus, be like Jesus, serve like Jesus. They weren't in the room that day. And they just answered it the same way. Act like Jesus, help people in need, give away stuff. It's amazing. Blows my mind. Y'all haven't lived till your mind's blown in front of, a few hundred people. But the children don't scheme. They don't manipulate much. But they don't carry grudges. They don't do that stuff. They might get annoyed, but they don't carry grudges. So adults, you want to get into the kingdom of heaven? Our kids have taught us today, trust, live with humility, wonder, and purity of heart. Children show us what God is like, and they also show us what the kingdom of heaven is like. Because their hearts are uncluttered, their trust is unfiltered, their humility is unpretentious, their wonder is unrestrained, and their purity of heart is contagious. Jesus didn't use them as a metaphor, he used them as a model for us. So as we grow older, we can easily grow harder. It can just happen in the world. As we accumulate knowledge, we can easily lose our openness that we have. And as we gain responsibility, we can easily lose our dependency on God. So God calls us today, church, not to be childish like me, but to be childlike. To be childlike. He invites the adults to go back to school and let the children teach us. They're not only our teachers, but the kingdom of heaven is the curriculum that they have. Jesus makes one more staggering statement as I wrap it up here. It's in 3 of the 4 Gospels, which also kind of underlines it. Mark, Matthew, and Luke. He says, whoever receives one such child in my name receives me. So when we welcome children into this church, we're welcoming Jesus into this church. You know, the children aren't recipients of ministry. They're agents of blessing. There's a whole flip there that we've successfully completed this morning. But their presence softens our hearts, it awakens our joy, and it reminds us what matters most. You know, when I was a kid, when I play with my grandsons, there are 3 words they use more often than anything. Do it again. And they usually say it 3 times. Do it again, do it again, do it again. You know, so I wanted to end with this for the adults. You know, you may sense this morning that you haven't been doing the childlike, you haven't been getting an A+ in the childlike lesson, or maybe you walked in today and you're in a rut, or maybe you're thinking back. Well, when I was a kid, I was excelling in those lessons that the kids taught us today. And this is what I heard Jesus. This is the word He gave me for those of us that are there. Do it again. Do it again. Do it again.